Do I hear a second?
Second?
Move to second, all in favor?
No, I gave it to you.
We have no old business. We're gonna move right into new business. And the first one is complaint on 101 Mill Stream Road.
Right, this is a complaint by Mr. Harrington, Michael Harrington, who lives at, it's 101 West Spring Road. He apparently came in a year ago this past July, and mentioned the problem with culvert. I don't remember the actual thing, but I remember him coming in, and I think I wanted someone to get a hold. I think I was walking out of the office, and I wanted someone to get a hold of Morris. But apparently that didn't happen the way we thought it might. So he brought a complaint to me again this summer, and I forwarded that email to you and that whole chain of emails. It's been back and forth. There apparently, right after I talked to him on his property about his culvert, about 3 weeks after, Morris went down to see him, and they made some kind of an arrangement where Morris would go and fix the culvert in the fall when the roads got colder. And then this gentleman was supposed to do something to fix the part that was on his lawn that wasn't part of the issue that the town can get involved in. Well, it didn't happen soon enough for Mr. Harrington. According to his letter, he felt that it should have happened sooner. So we talked to him, and we talked to his lawyer, I guess it was, Morris and I did. And Morris said that he'd be done within a week or so and get it fixed. He did, and Mr. Harrington says it's not fixed to his satisfaction. And he wanted to be left on the board meeting tonight, but he said he was traveling back and forth between Ohio and Minnesota, and he probably wouldn't be able to do it tonight. So that's where it's at. Morris, do you have anything to say about it?
I just brought some pictures down so anybody could see them. Maybe come up with a different idea.
So he looks like he wants to have a discussion with his attorney. I got an email here between him and his attorney, and I was CC'd on it. But that's about the extent right now. So
What exactly is he asking for?
he has a culvert across his driveway. It's a very flat
You have the
area.
pictures, Morris?
And the culvert was replaced when we did Mill Stream Road 2 years ago. And apparently he believes that because the ditch was about 6 inches lower than he lifted the culvert, he believes it was put in place wrong, and he believes that it was causing his lawn to be flooded. And so Morris went down and looked at it. I went down and took pictures early on and told Morris about it. Morris went down and looked at it. It essentially came up with the arrangement. Morris said a lot of that problem isn't, it was when there was an old ditch going across the old road. And that was part of his problem in his lawn, not the ditch. But anyhow, Morris went there, he's got pictures.
It sort of lines up right here.
So I don't think there's any decision that has to be made. He wanted to come in and explain to you the issues. I had him on the agenda thinking he might show up. He sent an email saying he probably couldn't make it.
So it's yeah.
He can be here, but he travels a lot. So.
I'd be willing to second that, but I'd kind of like to hear what Morris has to say since he is here. If that's possible. You have a problem with that?
Not a very good picture. That's what
He wanted to get someone else to do
finished it up.
the work also.
You can see how much the stone is at the top of the pipe here, not so much down here. He added, took the cattails out, added
He has basically said, I'll get
stone.
someone else in there to do the job the way I want it and charge the town.
Right. What'd you say, with a 30% markup or something?
Yeah.
His own tax.
Was he there, Martin, when he was doing the job?
No,
His wife comes with it.
nobody.
You know what it was?
Want to vote on the motion?
Do you want to take a look at this?
We can, yes.
Usually the way it works.
Well, I know, I'm just thinking about it a little bit, but, I guess I'll entertain, we got a motion on the floor, and moved and seconded. All in favor,
What's
we're
the
gonna
motion?
table this?
Table.
We're gonna table it until he comes back in town.
I will contact him.
I don't think we ought to keep going on and on and on with this thing. If he wants to be here, he needs to be here.
Yep.
So let's table it for one more meeting.
Okay.
If he doesn't show, have a nice day.
Okay.
All right,
Okay.
all in favor of that?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Just to let you know, I kept you informed of everything, and if I
Yeah.
did something, I'll ensure you do it.
Yes.
I didn't get this in my book, but it's come around.
Next thing is Parks and Recreation. West, requesting change of the Center for All Season closing policy.
Yes. The board has come up and drafted changes, and I sent you the package of changes that allowed you to follow it through. We're putting it to you guys for approval, because you're the approving authority for the policy changes. And you can ask that, or if you have any questions.
Mr. Chair,
Yep.
I'm gonna ask in deference to one of our senior residents who's here to talk about an issue that's near, close to his bedtime. Could we give Mr. Pulsifer a few minutes before we get into the Parks and Recreation? He's not on the agenda. Okay?
I think you can stay up late enough to, I'd like to stay.
How you doing? He's up pretty late last night, I don't know.
You'll be all right.
All right,
You'll be all right, won't you, Bill?
I can wait.
Okay.
I tried, Bill. Okay, back to Parks and Recreation. Sorry about that.
Be honest with you, I couldn't open my email. I can't open that. I kept trying all week. So I haven't looked at this. Can you just kind of brief me a little bit about what you want to do different?
Basically, when school closes early due to snow, we would not like to have the childcare program. That way, if the town closes or the state closes, we don't have to worry about parents rushing to come get them. The kids just go home already, and then my teenage staff goes home already. I can stay open, Bill and I can hold down the fort, but then we don't have to worry about kids on the road. They just go straight home after school while, you know, the school knows when it's safest for them to be on the road. And
That's it?
that's it,
That's
pretty
the
much.
biggest change. Advertising.
And how we would advertise changes to it. On the old policy, it said a couple of
TV
radio stations. And we post on Channel 6 now and Facebook and just
You don't use the radio stations at all?
not anymore, no.
Mike, go ahead.
Couple of things on Facebook. You need to put it on the town website. Not everybody uses Facebook.
Well, anytime the offices are closed, we put it up on the
Yeah,
website.
yeah.
I found it a little confusing. You gave us several things to choose from here. You're not proposing anything other than when the town facilities are closed, you'll be closed.
Right, well, when school closes, we just don't have the childcare program, the
Right,
after-school
but you're
program.
not arguing the fact, if Denny decides that because of the weather or whatever, all town facilities be closed, then you go along with that. You don't have a problem with that.
Right, right.
Okay.
This is only for school closures.
Yeah,
Cool,
yeah.
I understood that,
Just-
but I wasn't sure. if
Yeah,
that's-
a lot of times we'll close and we'll still be there like 3 hours later, waiting for parents to come get their kids.
I did
Because
notice.
of the weather and,
I did notice something else in this, which is a little bit different. Refers to rental contracts. And the way I read it, says center may remain open if a rental contract is in effect. Don't you put a clause in your contracts that if the town closes down the facilities, the contract is void, or at least postponed or something? And if you don't,
I
why
believe
don't?
that's in the
I
contract.
don't believe it is.
It says it here, so. All right.
It was in the original, the wording's a little different in the second one.
Well, the point is, my question is, do you have, if I come and rent the place, want to rent the place for whatever, and we have a big storm and Denny closes the town facilities, I don't have a right to continue with my rental, do I? You should be able to, well, you shouldn't be able to. If it's closed, it's closed.
Yeah, I would think.
I mean, at that
It's
point,
always
it's kind
been up to the
of their
individual.
choice, their,
It's been up
Well, it
to-
shouldn't,
It has
well,
been.
I don't think it should be their choice. I think if we decide that for safety or whatever the reasons,
Agreed.
it should be closed, they should have to postpone their, whatever it is they're doing, their rental, their event.
because
It is not safe for the
in
kids to be
my-
out.
right,
right.
No, in my, they've always been the ones to cancel earlier. So there's never been that type of a situation where somebody wanted to continue to have any kind of a rental
Right.
if the weather was
Right.
bad.
And
there
if
shouldn't be any
it's
problem
our,
putting-
I'm sorry, if it's our own event, if school's canceled, then we cancel too.
Right.
But if it's an outside rental,
Yeah.
I just think it's a lapse in the contract. I don't think that
Yeah, I
it's,
think so
and
too.
I think it can be added.
Yeah, I think that's all it is, it's just something that shouldn't be there. Or
Danny
should be
had his hand
changed.
up, okay, Melanie?
Well, I would think if we change the contract to reflect that, then we should just add a line in there that, you know, your money will be refunded or whatever, just so people don't think, well, we paid for this and now we can't use it because it's closed. You know, just add that little.
Or reschedule something, you know.
Yeah.
Right, like we're happy to entertain rescheduling or, you know, the refund show.
What's happened in the past?
We've never had a situation when that I can remember in my time
But people canceled,
that they've canceled before, you know, they're like 3 days before, the weather's gonna be bad, we're not gonna be there. We've never had somebody say, we're gonna be there no matter what.
Hopefully it's
You know,
not someone's wedding or something.
Right,
We don't get a
that
lot
would
of
be
winter
really,
weddings.
yeah, we don't get a lot of winter weddings there, but,
Well, it doesn't sound like it caused a great deal of,
it's
But I
just
think it should be
something
cleaned
that
up.
was never put in the contracts.
if this is a goal, I think there's another way you might be able to get the word out. You might just call the school, when they do the little thing, they send everybody the message, they could put it right on there too.
Right.
Then you're guaranteed, every parent's gonna get it in the district, whether they go there or not.
Yeah.
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 Will the school do that though? Because then they have to add like, and this daycare's closed, and then this one's closed.
Yeah.
They may have to down the road, but first come, first served.
We can ask.
Right. I mean, I know in
It's
the
only
past.
So,
BCS.
Danny?
so my understanding is to just to move the issue forward, the policy's okay as long as they make that adjustment to their contract.
And the adjustment to the policy because something's contradictory in the policy right now.
Okay, but you wanna get
That's
that
like-
done now,
Yeah,
you
so
wanna
I
make
can
sure
let
that they
parents
approve the
know.
policy, or you want it to come back?
No, we could have them approve the policy now with that, the wording changed.
with those changes.
and again, we're only talking about the school part of it. Okay,
No, just do you already have like a text, like, you know, like the school has the calling tree, where if the center happens to be closed, like say you had no water, do you have all the parents on a texting list where a mass text would already go out and say,
We don't have a mass thing. I have to do it. I have to call them all. Yeah.
yeah,
That's one of the reasons.
yeah, so just keeping in mind when the new website comes on, that is one of the capabilities that it will have, will be to have people on a texting or an emailing list, so when town facilities close, it will automatically generate one.
Yeah.
I-
It's like a lot of time.
Wow.
So,
Yeah.
Sure, wait line.
I got another question that, is this, how are you gonna get the word out to the people now? I mean, we're into the season now where it could happen tomorrow.
I have to send something home with all the kids. If they're not there, I have all the parents' contact
I mean,
information.
something ought to be sent out right off
Right.
so that the word's out.
Right. I have all of the parents' emails.
So it's not a
I have to-
surprise
Yeah.
when
Just
Yeah.
send
Oh,
out the
yeah, no.
policy.
the
Yeah.
kids home alone.
post something on the door, so
Yeah.
if it's not, say it's mom and dad who picks the kid up, it's usually the grandparent, that
Right.
everybody sees it.
Communication part of it.
Yeah.
Right, if school's closed, we're closed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I can let the school know too, so they know. But if some kid's like, oh yeah, I'm supposed to be going to the rec center today. It's snowing. No.
All right, I think,
Lily's not there, or
you
Albert's
guys
not
ready
there.
to make a motion, anybody?
Yeah, I'd make the motion that we accept the changes that they propose and
Do I hear a second?
yeah, second.
And move to second, any more discussion on this?
Go ahead. My only other discussion point is, I know that a lot of the buses are already overloaded, and if they plan the next number of kids to be on this bus that goes there, we've got to coordinate something with the bus garage as well.
Shouldn't have to, because those kids are, if they're gonna go home,
They'll go
they're already
directly from
scheduled on
school.
that bus. Supposed to go. They've already figured
Even
that.
if they go someplace different, cause like,
That may not,
cause my
But what we're
my
talking,
daughter babysits summer after school,
What we're talking about is brought about by an action of the school. So they ought to know, tell the kids, you're not going to the center for all seasons, get on the right bus.
What she's saying is, the buses,
Capacity.
they say that they're overloaded, okay? So, we'll say they're gonna go to your house, they don't normally go to your house,
They don't,
that goes on a whole different bus.
Yeah.
But I'm just, that's
Yeah, I know.
what you're trying to say.
Right, just, make sure the bus garage knows the,
Yep,
so everybody's.
But would they not be, that would be the bus that they would go into school on, so that bus must have the capacity to hold that child going in, why wouldn't they be able to hold that child coming home?
well, that's what I just told her, but we'll say they're gonna go to Joe Blow's house, which is not in the same room, they're gonna go on a different bus.
Right.
That's what she's saying.
Okay,
They may go to a friend's house,
right, got it.
you know.
Yeah, maybe we just send, once the policy changes, we send something to the bus garage as well that says, just so you know, this.
Don't they have to have
policy's
parents'
changed.
permission to get on a different bus?
But that's the parents.
That's the
Yeah,
parents'
there's a
deal.
form that they have to fill out at
They'll
the
make it
school.
work.
Yeah, I'm sure they will.
I did it for a few years.
Yeah.
I don't think this, the changes that they're proposing have much to do with the bus schedule
I don't
either.
necessarily, so
I don't
let's
either.
move on
Absolutely
to.
not.
Thank you.
All right, I entertain a vote. All in favor? 5? Thank you.
What was that, Kathy?
Hmm?
What was that?
I said I don't think that we can get off in the weeds on that.
The other thing, I guess, number 2 is to propose a change of the pool from a public pool to a private pool.
Alright. So here's the issue. Currently, we operate the pool at the Center for All Seasons as a public pool. Consequently, there are certain regulations we have to follow. One of those regulations is to provide a chairlift for handicapped individuals, so they can get in and out of the pool. The expense of that is around $3,500, plus there's maintenance costs, taking it in winter, taking it out, putting it out.
Storage.
So, there's storage issues and all of that. So, it's an item they were going to put into the budget for purchase. And then they looked at the issue and said, well, if we declared the pool private, we may not have to do that. There was a complication that came up that I forwarded to them. Mike, did you want to bring up that complication since you were the one that raised it?
well, yeah, no matter what you call it, it's still a public facility. And if you're planning to keep disabled people out of your pool, you gotta accommodate them. And I don't think the state town of Belgrade wants to say disabled people can't use the facility.
For children, because you have the school program.
It could be an adult, but children, yeah. So, I mean, I think you have to provide for it. If not, there's something else.
Right, I think when you're public, you have to have a specific ADA approved, pool lift. If we were to do the private, they have portable ones or different ones that are less expensive, or if it came up, we could get them then. Also, if a child, is handicapped, they have to have a one-on-one who is trained to help them in that kind of situation, getting in and out of pools or any other, situation similar to that.
So-
Danny?
So, it was an interesting point, and I guess my take on it is this: the Center for All Seasons is a public facility. We have programs, and maybe your answers are right on, but I still got this thing in my mind that we have programs where we bring children in. Yeah, we can call it private, but it's still a public facility. We're providing for the program for the kids. So I guess, is there a distinction between public and private in a public facility? I would argue that public facility is a public facility, I guess. But we can, I don't know the answer to that.
Melanie?
Should we check, the city of Augusta operates multiple public pools.
They have none of these lists, yeah.
Right, well, that's why I'm
They have
asking is
zero.
how come-
Yeah,
And their public pools are much more public than our pools.
yeah, we
And
have,
several, so how have they started that?
I think they've just skirted it. I don't think they've.
Taking the liability.
I don't think they've ever been challenged.
They've
on
never
it.
been challenged on it, and they never, maybe they have it as a, potential plan in the works, but they've never, spent the money on it, never planned to do it. And, I mean, we could do something similar to that, I guess, where we have this on file, and in case we ever needed to do it, we could spend the money and do it. But I was always under the impression that, yeah, that's a public facility, but that the pool was primarily used for center events or programs anyway. I mean, I'm a member of the public. I've never swum in the pool, but it just, I always thought it was there. Well, I always knew it was there primarily because it was on the property when we bought the property, but if we were constructing from scratch a center for the town, we probably wouldn't have a pool, I'm guessing, just because we wouldn't put one in, but anyway, I don't know.
Fill the pool?
I don't know where I stand on this.
This started coming up before I left, and we were dealing with Aquatet in Augusta. They were helping us with different issues, and he was the one that brought it up, that said, it is a public building, public pool. It would be, the law says that you should have this. However, most places like the city of Augusta do not have any. They have a plan that is like in the world, like there, that they can say, we're getting there, we just haven't had the funds, or we just haven't had the ability to get that done yet. And he didn't know of any of the city around that it had any problems with that.
So this is where this came from.
Originally, yes, yep,
Why did it come up again? I guess.
because it was on our list of things that we thought.
Mike?
Number one, that strikes me as rather disingenuous to do that. Oh, we're gonna do it, we don't have the money now, here's the plan. And I don't think, I'd like to see the town of Belgrade being involved in that kind of a scheme. The other thing, I think we're just playing semantics here. It's a public facility, no matter what you call it, it's a public facility. It's owned by the town, which is a public town. It's on public property. Fill the thing in if necessary, if it's that much problem. We can talk about that too. I don't wanna see that, but that's.
All right, let's go back to the list.
This was, yeah.
Yep.
So this was just one thing on the laundry list of things that had to be done to that pool. The fact that the estimate was gonna be $3,500, we were concerned that there was going to be balking on the part of the select board and the budget committee if we put it in there. Truth be told, we have enough money in the reserve to go ahead and do that. I'm not adverse to having it done. I don't think any of us are adverse to having it done. We're just trying to make sure that we're not spending on something that's not really gonna be used, and that we have to just keep putting money into it just so that it's available. When the need comes up, we could just have one installed.
What kind
It's in the works.
What kind of, most of us aren't that disingenuous. We're gonna step on your oxygen tube.
That's all right.
How much what kind of use do you get out of that pool? I mean, you have a lot of people coming to use it, a lot of classes or whatever.
No, we don't host like parties or things there. It's just mostly for summer camp. And then we do water aerobics, but that might be 2 or 3 classes throughout the summer, depending on weather and who shows up. And then there is public swim at the end of the day, but again, it's maybe 1 or 2 people a day, maybe.
And it was actually for the public swim that we were talking about making it a private club for the people that wanted to do the public swim, where they paid a little bit of money and they got to go use the pool during that hour. And as soon as somebody needed a handicap access, then we cross that bridge.
Okay, what would you guys like to do?
Like, yeah,
Question?
You know, I wonder.
Go ahead, Jack.
The discussion brings up two questions in my mind. If a family or anybody with a disabled person, disabled child shows up, how long would it take, assuming we have reserved money, how long would it take to actually implement this? Could it be done in a week, 2 weeks, or would it take the next season to do it? In other words, why do it until you need it? But if you need it, then how quickly can you do it? The other question is, if you do something like this for a disabled child and put the spotlight on it, is it going to be a clean expense over and done with? Or is it going to have a tail of things, other things that it precipitates? Are there regulations involving lifeguards that would change? Are there regulations requiring involving water testing or water temperature? I'm just throwing out some things. But does it have a tail to it, or is it just a clean job?
Well, my other question along with that, Jack, is if we do this for the public pool, then our public swim areas, are we then opening ourselves to liability for those?
Or pathways.
And I think, if I remember with Maine Municipal, like the public swimming areas would be the same as if you're on a lake and a boat. There's no liability to the town once you're on the lake, and if there's a public swimming area, that there's no liability there. So I don't think that that would fall in the same category.
Outdoor recreation is pretty much covered.
Right, so, yeah, I think we'd have to look into it. I think we'd have to contact Maine Municipal and really do a little bit more.
I think you're right. I mean, rather than do anything with this today, contact Maine Municipal and just find out if what they're trying to do is it legitimate, or is it going to just cause us more problems. Denny, can you do that?
I can pass it on to them, or I can do it, not a problem.
What do you think?
I think we've got a plan. Like,
Well, and that could
Sure.
be part of the question. We have a plan. We don't have anything ordered, but we have a plan. Will that get us off the hook? I just think of, well, if a disabled person, somebody comes over from Travis Mills' place, a couple of those guys come over, they want to use the pool. They just show up using it. What are we gonna do? Sorry, guys, you gotta jump in yourself.
Boy, they got a pretty fancy waterfront right there.
I know it, but that's, who's to say that they have a right to use the pool, don't they?
I'm biting my tongue.
They have a right to use the
They're in
facility.
Rome.
Well, and I have to
Is
say,
it
I
only
do remember
residents
years
or something?
ago when the town office did not have a entrance that was accessible to a wheelchair. I was actually told there was no one in Belgrade in a wheelchair, so it didn't apply to us. And I was like, excuse me? You didn't tell me that, no, this was preceded your time, but I was like, did somebody just actually say that? Cause I was like, well, that's not how that works.
Nobody in the whole town is in a
Yep,
wheelchair.
nobody in the town is in a wheelchair, so it doesn't
Well,
apply to
I
us.
think find out how legitimate this is,
Yeah.
and are we gonna have any liability if we do it?
See who else has got one.
So do you wanna table it for the time being?
I would think, I would think if this is a big issue, that our insurance people would have picked up on this a long time ago.
Maybe, maybe not, who knows?
We'll check it out.
Pick up on that, let's
yeah,
go.
I think we need to know more
We'll
about
check
it.
it out and bring it back.
Fix your flag.
Take a motion to table this.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Okay. Been moved and seconded, any more discussion?
It would be interesting to see if there was the ability to co-purchase one with other towns who have public pools. And it could be that you have times available, like say, this town has,
That's a,
This is a
I think
permanent
it's empty.
Oh, it's
structure,
bolted
so
right
it's
into the-
bolted right into the concrete,
well,
yeah.
that's what I'm wondering, does that have to be a permanent one, or is there
But
something?
then we gotta have somebody to
affordable?
transport
The
it.
ADA one,
Yeah.
permanent.
All right, well, never mind.
Let's find out some more information. So, all in favor of this,
Table it.
tabling it? There we go.
Denny is driving me crazy, you're sending a distress signal, the fix your flag. Fix your flag, you're sending a distress signal.
All right, thank you very
been
much.
nice,
Bye,
kids.
ladies.
I won't be here for the next one.
Oh, good, we can get there.
We can talk about you then.
All right, now we're gonna go to the next part, request from a tenant at 10 Dalton.
Yes, it's Chevelle Simon, and Chevelle is renting 10 Dalton. And there's a couple things he'd like to do. One, he would like to rent one of the garage bays at $50 a month. I believe that was is that correct? $50 a month. And the other two issues is he'd like to put a marble or granite stone flooring in at his expense in the kitchen, and then replace the carpeting in the hallway and the living room with the hardwood flooring at his expense. I read the contracts. I know that you folks have been involved in all of that. I didn't know if I had the authority just to say okay, so I put it out to you guys if you guys want to discuss it. Mr. Simone is here. You can ask him questions.
Okay,
Yep, go ahead.
off the top of my head, the first question is simply, do we have a policy in the town of Belgrade that anyone outside of town, employees or folks that we contract with, can change? Like say Morris doesn't like the flooring in here, can Morris come in and change the flooring?
Well,
He's a tenant though.
He's a tenant, but it's a town, the town owns the home. So then generally, you know, in places I've rented in the past, we're gonna paint the whole house, they're gonna come in and inspect it first, they're gonna come in and inspect it after. Is there an agreement in place that if it costs me X number of dollars, then I've gotta use this kind of paint, and this is gonna then come off my rent? So there's generally some other pieces to that, and no offense to you, but maybe you're not very good at doing flooring, we don't
Well,
know.
He's not gonna do that.
Yep, go ahead, sir.
Excuse me. Before I moved in like four weeks ago from Providence, Rhode Island, I came to see the place, and I thought it was not, the walls needed some painting, and I spoke with the real estate agent who, I said I'll pay for it, so she gave me the okay. I don't know, maybe from you or from the town, but I spent $600 on it to paint the house before I moved in. And then when I get here, I looked at the carpet, I said, maybe I can afford to put a new floor. So at my own expense, without touching anything or discussing the rent or anything, it's on my own expense. And I'm improving it for the town. I'm gonna be here maybe 5 years, and the year will be yours. Granting that you will not raise the rent for the next year.
Well, it's like, there's gotta be a caveat.
Don't double it. I mean, I understand there is a raise every year, which has happened tenant all my life, but I expect some increase, but not to be.
So,
Danny?
Mr. Simon is going to hire people to do it, so there wouldn't be any expense to the town. And there is no policy in terms of whether or not we can or can't authorize this. I mean, we rent the facilities based on the board's request of the town to do that. And the board has retained the authority to say yay or nay to these issues. So that's why he's come before you. It's an improvement to the facility.
Yeah, Mike?
The only comment I have, I think, is that we have a chance to just approve the materials you're gonna use before you actually install them. So then run by a facilities manager or somebody just to make sure that they're acceptable.
We can do that, but
I mean, you know,
yeah,
you wanna make sure he's not gonna put something in that's gonna be a fire hazard or some other stuff.
Yeah, or like, you know, I try to tell places.
Hang on, I'll get you in a minute, I got one ahead of you. Jack?
I would hope that in fairness to the person who is renting, that before this is finalized, there would be a written agreement on the term of the lease, so that he doesn't, or she doesn't put a significant amount of money into the place, and then the town, this board, or your successors, or whatever, turn around and say, we want to do something else with the property, and you're all done. I think that's kind of a critical part of this discussion.
Thank you.
that's, I can write up an agreement, that's up to you.
That was, oh no, wait, he had his hand up, I'm sorry. Next up.
I've been shopping around with Jaws and Home Depot. I see to put the floor could be between $1.25 square foot to $3 or $4. So I don't think I want to do the $3-4. I think I want to do to be honest with you, to be between the $1.25, $1.85 square foot. So that's a decent, good quality. And the person who rented the house for me, his name Jason. Jason, he was with town. I think Jason Law. I think I had his name. He said he's willing to do it if the town approve it. So I'm sure I'm very much open to have him talk to you, to see the quality and approve it. And
What was his last name?
last name would be, I have it here, 1 second. Jason Law, L-O-W. He was maybe with the real estate agent. She got him from me. I don't know anybody in town yet.
Well, I don't know that I necessarily have a problem. I mean, gentleman strikes me as somebody's gonna do it the right way.
But I'm willing to go with anybody you designate to the store, pick up the material together, and then within a reasonable price.
I'd say I'm in favor of, I don't think we should look a gift horse in the mouth here. I mean, this fella enjoys living in that space and plans to live there for a period of time, which, as a former landlord myself, if you have somebody that wants to care for the place and is gonna make some sort of a commitment time-wise to stay there, and pays the rent on a regular basis and takes care of the place, I think we should try to support that. And so I'd be in favor of doing that, and I'd be in favor of stipulating a term to the lease, that allows him to at least live in his the expense that he take advantage of the expense that he spent to make the place better living for himself for his period of time. So I'd make a motion that we accept his offer and perhaps make him. Then he mentioned drawing up an agreement. I'd make a motion that we do that.
Let me get Melanie here first.
I would, if the town were going to agree with this, I would like to see the town do something for the tenant. That I would like us to not say, you owe the full month's rent and then you incur this expense. I would like for there to be, much as when Travis purchases something for the town, the receipts turned into the town takes care of paying for the materials, that comes off what you owe the town for rent. It would seem to be only fair that we would cover the cost of the expense. There's money built into the budget, and clearly from our meeting last week, there's a significant amount of money that we've set aside for renovations in the budget for the Dalton properties. So I would think that some of that should be able to be used for some updates to them. So I wouldn't want to make a full decision on it tonight. I want us to be able to talk about it and come up with an agreement that's fair to you, but also fair to the town and protects everyone involved.
When do you want to do that? You want to start it right away, or when do you want to do this? You looking to start this right away?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Because we can let him go ahead, and then we can discuss how we're gonna compensation after the fact. I don't want to hold them up.
Right.
Point of order, we've got a motion on the floor.
Yes.
It hasn't been seconded.
Hadn't been seconded, so,
Seconded.
okay, now we can keep discussing. Then you understand that.
Just to be clear, Mr. Savan came here with the offer of doing this at his expense, and he was requesting the authority for the town to do that. All of the discussions, certainly, I'm not opposed to anything on this, but I mean, that was his request. That if the board would like to do something else, in other words, in compensating him for doing it, that's certainly up to the board. But I wanted to make sure we focus on the fact that he came and made the offer to.
And he wants to get it done.
Well, I don't know what the I don't remember what the motion was, but we can approve his doing the work and then talk about any compensation for it, if any, outside of that, after that. Otherwise, we could sit here for 2 hours and discuss it.
I agree with that, but I also, there's a little niggling piece in the back of my mind that says we don't know the contractor. And what if something then happens in Dalton that is now becomes the town's responsibility to go back in and fix? So there's.
Yep, go ahead.
I have no problem with the town with the contractor. So if somebody you're comfortable with working, I put the material together with the person, he or she, who does the job. That's no problem for me. I can understand your concern, which is, it's a bad, so, yeah. I mean,
Watching everybody's back.
Yeah.
And don't forget the other issue is the bay, he wants to rent a garage bay.
Yeah, that was part 2 of that.
Yeah. Do you have, on the garage, do you have a particular bay in mind or just anyone?
Just to park my garage, I have a very expensive car and I'm not used to the snow coming down, so I thought I'd have a garage.
You heard about Les plowing.
Yeah.
I just want to mention for the record, when I signed the lease, it was trash removal included, but I found out that I have to share it with my neighbors who allow me to put my garbage in her barrel, and I spoke to the manager, and I said I waive my right, so I don't need it. I can manage to do with my neighbor, and I offered to pay her half what she's paying, and she accepted that. So although I signed a lease with the trash removal.
Thank you.
So just to, on that issue, the leasing agent, which we have, checked the box that said trash removal, which wasn't part of our understanding of what was supposed to be happening. She agreed to basically pay for it if he wanted that to be done. He's generously says, no, you don't have to pay for it. I don't want to get you in trouble. I don't want to get anyone in trouble. Oh, I'll take care of it. So, so I have talked to the leasing agent, so that should not have been done, and we should change that. So she is working to do that, and Charbel understands that.
Okay.
So,
Anybody else got anything they wanna say before we decide we're gonna vote on? So what's your motion again?
Why don't I restate the motion a little differently in that why don't we?
Hang on, Reed. You
Do
gotta.
we want 2 separate motions, one that addresses?
Well, I don't know, do we need to decide
do it all
on
one
each one of these things, or can we just do it as one thing?
Do it as one thing and restate the motion.
I would make the motion that, just restated, I would say that I would agree that we would agree to allow him to rent one of the garage bays for $50 a month. That we would agree to his generous offer to replace the flooring in the kitchen with stone or marble flooring at his expense. And that we would agree to his generous offer to replace the carpeting in the living room with wood flooring at his expense.
And a painting.
I mean, the gentleman came here to make this offer to do this at his expense, and while it's a lovely gesture for us to say, oh, well, here, let us pay you. I mean, he came to
This is what he came with.
This is what he came with. I would make the motion that we accept his proposal and thank him profusely for it.
All right, do I hear a second now on it?
Second.
Okay.
I had already seconded it.
I know,
I have
but
to decide whether
changed it.
You can
I have to decide
second
whether to
second.
change it. Yeah, second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Jack?
Well, what I heard was a blank check. Don't you want to put some minimum on, some maximum amount of money on? I don't want to say what that should be, I don't know, I'm not qualified to say. But you just moved a blank check.
And I just.
I'm not sure what a blank check is. Explain that a little more in detail. What do we want a blank check? He's gonna pay for the
price of doing it. There has to be some quid pro quo for that, some term. Is there a term set for this? If he's gonna spend a significant amount of money, I should think he would want a term.
He wasn't asking for it.
You didn't ask for it.
That's not what he asked for.
He simply came forward and made an offer. I thought it was a very generous offer. He's a very
Nice man.
so he made the offer, and, you know, I didn't have the authority to approve it. I brought it before the board.
All right, Melanie, did you have a?
So we have a policy in place, it would be considered a gift to the town, so then the gift would need to be accepted by the board of select persons. It would then fall under those guidelines, so I'd like for us to review what the guidelines are. The second piece of that is that initially we were not using the garage, and there was a reason we weren't using the garage. I don't remember exactly what the reason was, but I remember that there was a reason that we weren't allowing tenants to use it. I would like for us not to rewrite what we're doing with the property without knowing why we wrote it the way we did in the first place. And I also would suggest, second to that, that we have a copy of the lease agreement that this real estate agent is doing on behalf of the town. Because I also don't feel like if you're paying for trash removal and it's not being provided, but then we're saying, but we'll go ahead and take $50 more for a garage bay rental, there's gotta be, we can't be in the business of just taking, we've gotta.
Now, hold on. This is getting really confused.
Yeah, it is.
It's crazy.
This is really getting to a point. The gentleman asked for the right to use a garage. We hadn't used a garage before because Gary thought he was gonna use it for storage and stuff. We had let one tenant use the garage, and it was filled up with boxes of old clothes, and it became a fire hazard. We said, no, you can't do that. He's asking to park his car.
On one door, not.
No, I understand, the one bay. He's asking to park his car in that bay, $50 a month. Okay, that's extra money. The other issues are, he came forward and said, you know, I really don't, you know, the flooring, I'd like to replace it. Do you mind? And that's the question before you. We want to put stone or marble in the same way with the wood flooring and the thing. So that's the offer he made. As far as the trash removal, that was a mistake that was made by the rental firm when she made out the contract for him to sign. She X'd that one box. And I asked her not to X it. We had that conversation, and that's resolved. So the only thing is an offer here. I mean, that's what I say. I mean, that's certainly, it's you guys to agree, and you can put whatever constraints on that offer that you want, but it's.
Okay, we have a motion.
I think,
Yes, we
yeah,
do.
the gist of the motion is he
Seconded.
made the offer, and I'd like to make the motion that we accept his offer.
We've been moved and seconded. I think it's time to call this and let's, I'd entertain a vote. All in favor? 4, all opposed? 1. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
No, it's all good.
Thank you. I may ask.
Yes.
I want to consult with you before I start the work.
We'll have Les, talk to Les, you know Les, that everybody need this guy,
Talk to Les and Jenny.
Thank you.
okay?
Do we make that part of the motion?
Thank you.
We can, but I don't know. I think he's gonna anyways. I don't think he's just gonna go put
I
a
don't
plywood down.
think he is either, but I think if we set a precedent, then we need to make sure that we cross the Ts and dot the Is, and we don't just do it on the fly.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on. Fire department request to take money out of the fire and rescue capital reserve to purchase a SCBA breathing air compressor.
Yep, the one we have right now, died, so we have no means to fill our bottles. We have to go to Oakland or Waterville. And Augusta's building a new station, and their old machine, because they're putting everything new in the new station, is up for sale. And it was originally, Eddie did a lot of the homework on it, it was at 11,000, right? 12, and he knocked it down to 10. He can give you some facts about the compressor, but,
I provided the information.
they have all the list of everything.
I did a write-up that explains a lot of that.
Yep.
So we're looking to purchase that and take the money out of the capital reserve.
$10,000?
Yes.
Okay.
What's the new one cost?
35 to 40.
35 million. Has this got enough life in it that'll be worth
Yeah,
it?
and then in that too, is you can see, you got a picture of it, so you can see how we fill it the old way, or now, it's a piece of well casing. Tank, in this new system will have, it has the balls, you hook them on and you spin it, and it's a protective area, so when you're filling it, in case something happens, now we go through the roof. It's
I
really-
kinda duck when I'm filling bottles now. So.
It's really a safety thing, too.
Don't be scared.
Make a motion that we, make a motion that we authorize, fire department to make the purchase.
I second that.
Been moved and seconded. How old is this? One that,
What would you get the year of it?
I guess,
2006. But it's got a brand new control board going on it, and everything is new with the control board's got a full 3-year warranty.
is this something you guys gonna be able to do yourself, everything?
They're gonna install it, of course.
Yeah.
For that.
And that's
And my
We
question,
gotta do some wiring a
Yeah.
little bit, but,
you know a guy can do that?
yeah.
Okay.
Well,
For
find
free?
time with that guy to do it.
For free?
Yeah, well, we're working, probably.
I don't have any more questions. Anybody else got any
Yeah,
questions?
and
I just
coming
had a
with that comes,
quickie.
well, I think it's in, you get, is a larger bottle, larger pressure capacity, because the other ones we have are the lower ones, we have to swap them out, that comes with the bottles too.
Yeah, sounds like good.
And, oops, go ahead.
This has a 3-year warranty on it,
On
How much
the
time is
control
left on it?
board,
on the control board,
yeah, the rest is not, that's pretty much the brains behind it,
right? So how much is left on this 3-year warranty?
it's brand new.
From the
So it's brand
moment
new.
that you buy it,
Yeah.
per se, okay.
Who was the photographer?
Are you all set?
I am, thank you very much.
And there's enough left in capital reserve to do it this year, or does it need to get?
No, we've got close to 200 in there now, and then what we put in, that's in the town, we talked about the budget meeting.
In the budget.
About the truck, so. Plus whatever's left over this year will go in there, so it might be a wash anyway. What's left over is gonna probably clear it back out.
Okay, anybody else got anything? Seeing none, been moved and seconded, all in favor? Looks like 5.
Just one quick question, what about the old one, it's not worth much, but do we have to come back to you guys to get rid of it, or dispose of it, or?
How would you get
It's
rid
not
of it?
worth- It won't work.
We have the authority to sell it.
What's that?
We have the authority to sell it.
There's a standing,
Come to Dennis, I mean, I don't even think we're gonna get anything for it, it might be more going to Oakland for metal.
It may.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, the next thing is
Oh.
cable franchise.
Yes, this is, I'm just bringing this to your information, because a meeting is being scheduled amongst several towns. They're looking at joining into a group to do the cable franchise agreements. So we're 4 years away from a new agreement, but you don't know what's gonna happen in the next 3 years. In federal law, as I pointed out to you recently, it looks like it might even stop the ability to give, to take franchise fees, or to have the cable company pay franchise fees. So I'm going to go to the meeting and just learn more, but the point here is that if we were to join, it would cost up to $3,500 per person, or between $3,500 and $5,000 per town, depending on the number of towns. I'm just making this all of you aware of it. I'm not asking for any money right now, but if it does prove to be something that we'd like to look into, I want you to be aware that it might be coming down the road. So I thought it was an interesting concept. It's something I thought we should have done many years ago when we were right up for a cable franchise renewal. So anyway, that's the issue.
Okay.
No action today.
Next thing on the agenda is Peninsula Parking.
Yes, this, in fact, this is an issue that Carol Johnson, who is interested in having some ability to either own, lease, or exchange some Peninsula Park for some parking spaces, is here to talk about. So,
Yeah. So my name is Carol Johnson. I think I know all of you. I'll just give you a copy of
Thank you.
hot off the presses, which is why I didn't have it done earlier. Literally hot off the presses. Huh? No, that's Tuesday night. So, I'll just sort of walk you through it, because it just sort of lays it out. The background is the southern section of Peninsula Park, which sits, my house sits next to Day Store, between Day Store and the dam. And there's a sliver of, I call it the southern part of Peninsula Park, that abuts my property. I think in 2014, there was a fence put in, and it was cordoned off and marked, a new sign went up. And also there's land across the street. So the park is, my house is owned in my revocable trust and Donald Raycroft's revocable trust. He passed away in February. The park sits approximately 20 feet from the house and has that split rail fence that goes down. The issue for me is when I was living, now that I'm living there by myself, the park has 24/7 access. And although it's very, very rarely used, there is the availability that someone can be there 2 o'clock in the morning if they choose to. So what I have, the next page shows you sort of the lower portion of the park. It's not real accessible, it's not readily usable because there's a big slope to the land. There also is no fence on that portion of the park going into the old spillway. So that's just for your knowledge, there is a safety issue there. And then there's a picture of the side of my house. Pretty much where I'm proposing is where the white part of the house ends. And the darker part that shows there, the blue part, is about there is where I would put a boundary line, which we'll talk about. Now, across the street, I also own the property across the street. And I think I included in all your packages a little piece from the park showing my property and the town property on both sides of the street. At the moment, there's no legal parking on that part of the street.
Why do you say that?
Huh?
Why do you say that?
Because the state tells us there's no legal parking in the town of Belgrade. There are 4 spaces that are currently and actively parked across the street from my house. About any time of the day, especially in the summer, there are 4 people there all the time. With the reconstruction of Route 27, the state is going to take that curb that allows people to get most of the way out of the road. That curb is going to be brought into the center line so that no one's going to be able to even get out of the way to park. And that, the next picture shows a car parked, quote, illegally, the way they're being parked now. So the other thing with the parking changes and the little piece I have here, from the dam to the entrance to the Village Inn parking lot, on both sides of the road, there will be 3 on-street parking spaces, and one of them is to be handicap accessible, designated for handicap accessible. Day Store will continue to have their parking in front of Day Store. The post office has their parking, but you know that has some usage there. So there's going to be a huge, huge parking issue through. So I just included a couple pictures of what the parking looks like as you go down through the village. We've all seen them with cars over the line. With the new parking changes, it's not going to allow for that type of parking. So what my proposal is, and that's on the next to the last page, my proposal is that I would be willing to exchange, quote, give the town 5 to 6 feet on the west side of the road so that we could then have legal parking spaces created. When I was talking with Ernie Martin in the development of the project, he said there's not enough room to put spaces there. So the only way to be able to put spaces there would be to essentially come onto my property to do that. So my proposal is that I would give the town enough land, which I'm estimating is probably 5 to 6 feet, so that we could make, the town could have 4 permanent parking spaces downtown, which are going to be critical. And that probably would need a little bit of the land that the town owns, and I know there's a dry hydrant or something there.
So I was waiting for that.
So we need, yeah, I figured you might be. So that we'd have to work to see, it might be 3, I expect if we don't strike them, it would be 4. But, and what I would propose that the town do is trade with me for the land that I'm most concerned about for my privacy and security, which is about where that white building, where the white and blue building meet. Run it across to the old spillway, just take the fence and move it across. The town would keep the front of the land that sits on the road. We'd have benches, we'd have bike racks. I'm not worried about that part of it. And it also gives access to the town to do repairs on the dam. And I would include an easement across if you had to come over that property even further to do future repairs. So there's a sense of urgency on it. This, I'd sort of talked with Ernie Martin about it. I had a discussion and he said it's not going to be part of this project, and I sort of put it in the back burner. However, a week ago, Diane Oliver and I were down talking with DOT because we're looking, we, the Friends of Belgrade Lakes Village, are looking for land that we can put in as a parking lot, and we were talking with DOT about access off 27 and what do we need to do, and what pieces do we need to make sure that we had in order. And at that time, I said, so are you the person that I have to come back to once this project's finished to propose this exchange? And Dave Allen said, well, what are you talking about? So I explained the piece, and his comment was, if the town got behind us and wanted to have the 4 parking spaces, it could happen if we moved on it. So if nothing happens, it's going to be built, they're going to bring the curb in, and then to go and make parking spaces, if the town's interested in doing that, there's all that cost of building the spaces. If the town is interested in discussing it and further exploring it, we could probably get it in, because they are not going to be digging up and finishing the part of the road by the dam. Their plan now is to get the under drain in, get the catch basins in, which they started on today. They did part of the digging today. And then that part of the road will not be dug up until spring. So I'm basically saying, if it's something that the town's interested in, I would like to talk with them more about it, maybe do a site visit. If it's something you're not interested in, you just need to tell me to, go home, and I'll go home. So the parking is so critical, and keeping the village vital is so important, that that's the reason that I originally proposed this, is it will work both ways. So.
Yep, go ahead.
Are you proposing that the town is going to release this whole portion of it that's shown in the picture? On the other side
Well,
of the
I don't
fence?
know if that's I was just trying to get a visual of the land, but the lower part of the land would be mine. You would have enough land on the other side to do what you're doing. That's what I'm proposing.
What do you mean the other side? You mean across the?
Across the street, so you can get the parking
Across the
spaces
street.
in. So that land cannot stay with my name attached to it at all and be part of this project, nor am I looking for it to be. But the state was very clear, it would have to be, I would have to transfer it to the town of Belgrade, and then the town of Belgrade would go to the state and put a change order in. And there's a chance to do that for the spring, if that's something you're interested in doing.
The park, by the way, closes at sunset.
I'm sorry?
The park closes at sunset, legally.
Okay.
Just for.
Okay.
Tell that to the people.
Well, if I find someone, I'll know who to call, Mike.
Now you call the sheriff, and I'll call him. Well, I mean, I don't, sounds like a good idea, but I don't know.
I just have a question about the dry hydrant. You're talking to putting the 4 spaces on the dry hydrant side.
Yes, yep.
And
Yes,
then,
each
so
side
if
on
they
the
don't, and that curb's coming out, are we gonna, well, I guess I haven't seen that plan, are we gonna be able to
I
access
have it here, but
access our dry hydrant where
Yeah.
they're moving it?
I'm sure, I don't know.
We'll be in the road, which we kinda
I've
are
got
anyway.
the
but-
plans with me if you want to look at them, which, I mean, the dry hydrant's pretty close to the dam itself, isn't it?
Correct. Yeah.
So
And
I
we're pretty
think,
much on
I
the
don't
road
think that's gonna be
anyway.
but it really does scoop in there enough where cars can now park and basically be out of the way, to the point that they do it all the time. So, That's,
So they'd be taking more of that land in and giving.
so that you can get the cars legally off the road, and that's why, in the early development, Ernie said, there's not enough land, you don't have a good sight line. Well, Gatay's tree came down, the stump got ground up, so the sight line's a lot better than it was. So it will take some working, it's just, if you're interested, then we sort of need to work with Jenny or whatever to move it, see if you want to move it forward. If you're not interested, then you're not interested.
So your question to us tonight is, are we interested in exploring it further?
Right, and if you are, there's some things that we need to figure out what to do, and I would recommend we do a site visit in the next couple of weeks so that you can look and see what we're talking about, and then have a much better idea, other than my pictures here, of what's happening.
Yeah, and, well, I think it's a good idea to get more parking spaces. One question I asked Carol is the question of the town, as I understand it, and I may be wrong, and that's one of the things we check into with our work, is if we were to do this, does the town, not the board, the town have to okay the acceptance of the property as a donation in exchange for, and give up the other property? I think
I don't know the answer to that. That's part of what we need to check.
Deal with in the past, but we can work and see what we really.
We're probably gonna have to, because if there's gonna be a change order done, that's money.
No, I understand. The question, obviously, it changes, but I'm, even before that, before you can do anything, is the requirement of the town to accept that donation of land and the ability to give up the other part in exchange. It's an issue that, I know when we accept the 10 acres now, or whatever it was last year, we had to go to the town and ask for that.
Right.
And so I brought it up to Carol because that might kind of impact the schedule a little bit.
Timing might be, yeah, it's really, part of it's a question of what they run into when they're digging, and you know, how far behind, how much more far behind they're going to be.
If they would have been a little bit more upfront with us, we could have had all of this done by now, but as you indicated that.
Well, Ernie said he couldn't do it within the scope of his project. So my comment to Ernie at a meeting was, I tried one more time and it didn't work, and he said, no, you need to go back and you need to go to, he told me who it was. So I said, well, why am I gonna go back to them if they're just gonna send it to you when you're gonna say no? And he said, I'm saying no because within the project that we currently have, I'm not including it. So, but if you go, he basically said, if you go to the other people, it'll probably get approved and you can move forward with it, but you need to wait till this project's done. And that's where I left it and thought, good, this is next year's project. I have enough going on right now. And then when we were down at Maine DOT, and basically their comment was, if it's the right thing to do, the state should do it. And if that means they need to put a change order and say, don't move the curb in, but put the curb back and put 4 spaces in, it's not a significant difference from what they're doing, but there's a change order. It should be able to be done, but obviously sooner rather than later if you want it to be done as part of the project. So.
Jack?
Yeah, if the homework was done and it was brought to the town meeting, if the town has to approve it at the town meeting in March, would that fit the schedule?
I don't know. I think it probably would, but I don't know that. And the question is, does this need to go, can this go to town on the floor at town meeting? Or does this have to go to the ballot?
That's up to the.
I mean, to me, it would seem as though it could go on the floor, but I don't know that again. But there's some of the questions we need to work through if there's interest to work through.
I'm just thinking of the timing.
Absolutely.
That would be the critical point.
You know, they're probably not going to be able to start digging until March before you'd have enough frost out of the ground.
Who knows?
April, I mean, they've got to dig, and they're not going to dig up the road itself on the northern end this fall.
All right.
So
I think
it
we need
probably
some more
would work
information
out.
on this before we can make any type of decision what we want to do, so I think we need to find out whether we can do that.
Yeah. I mean, so you're interested in investigating it further, is I guess your question.
Absolutely, let's
Yes.
check it out.
Okay. And are you interested in doing a site visit so you really have a better handle on what we're looking at?
Sure.
And if so, I don't know, Denny, do you schedule it or we, well, I mean,
I can certainly schedule it, but I won't be around for the next 6 days or so, but
Okay.
next week sometime.
it's fine, I can be available with, you know, I usually go to Portsmouth 1 day a week, so I'm around to do it, or we can do it in smaller groups, you all don't have to come together.
Just leave your phone number.
Huh?
Leave your phone number.
Leave my phone number.
To simplify this, just, I mean, basically I was just trying to get a sense of, you're looking to sort of move the fence this way, right?
I'm looking to take the fence that runs east-west and take the lower part of that fence and put it north-south. So that would delineate the difference, and then, if I were the town, I'd take any remaining fence and run it up the side of the spillway. On the opposite side of the spillway, there's a chain link fence to keep people from sliding into the spillway. On this, there is nothing, and it's a very steep grade. And the land slope's funny, so you can't do a lot with it.
Sure.
But,
And then, more or less, the parking spaces that are currently there would reappear there in the new road.
That's right.
But they would just be further onto your
They
land
just-
because.
the state
you're
says you have to
giving them-
have, I don't know how many feet, does anyone, you guys know? I don't know,
You
8
said-
feet or 9 feet, and they've got 4, 3.
Yeah,
So
after
it's
they
just,
expand
it's
the road.
enough to get a legal space, so the state would approve it.
Sure, so you're giving 4 to 6 feet.
On the
from
other side.
The new curbing.
Right.
Over to create the spaces that, more or less, we have the same spaces we have there now.
Right.
Just they'd be moved over because the road's wider.
If we don't do that, there'll be no parking.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so.
Which
yeah.
means no parking heading north
Yeah.
on 27 from the Village Inn to the dam.
Yeah, those
No
spaces,
on-street
I'd be in
parking.
favor of that, because, I mean, those spaces not only come in handy for, people average people to park there, but they also come in handy for trucks, when they're unloading or unloading.
Well, if people are gonna use Peninsula Park,
Yeah.
I mean, there's a whole lot of people who use those spaces.
I think we need to table this and
Okay.
get some more information.
Yep.
Okay.
With the understanding we'll investigate it.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
So, I'd entertain a motion to
Table.
table.
Yeah,
Moved and seconded, all in favor? That's 4 and 1.
Good plan.
Okay.
All right.
We're in favor.
Yeah, let's do Bill. Get,
I have just a request that before the next presidential election comes up, people remember the fiasco we had last night and the failed performance of these facilities that handled easily the 1,000 people that went through here.
Wow.
The parking lot, well, Travis can, I didn't get out to see how bad that was, but the people I understand was on both sides, follow trips.
Well, everyone was walking towards these side doors here, and they were walking over the grass and over the curb. And I helped a lot of elderly up over the grass. And one gentleman actually tripped on that curb and fell down. He was fine. He bounced up and took off, but it was kind of dark back there, but everyone was, if that sidewalk could be extended, I don't know if you guys have talked about that, but he fell on the pavement.
How come they don't use the front door?
The handicap too.
Huh?
We had a handicap sign out there at work.
Well, why doesn't everybody come through? That's all your lit area, that's your main entrance.
The issue is, we have work going on out there, and you just block that whole area. So you couldn't operate the town office.
Liability reason, that's your main entrance and lit well and.
The other problem I noticed, just to add this, people were parked on both sides of the road going in and out.
Yeah.
That's
It
what it
made a
is.
wall in that people couldn't exit the parking lot, they couldn't come in.
if you watched the news last night, we weren't the only ones.
No.
If you looked at any of these places, it was record voting, and because we don't usually have 100.
Out on the road when I left, there were multiple vehicles and trucks parked. So you had both sides and then both exits leaving, like both sides of the road. I was like,
That's
You couldn't see
dangerous.
to come out, you were coming out into 27
Oh,
to
yeah.
see
That's
if
the
it
problem
could
you had at
come
the
out.
community center where we had a
Right,
fatal,
and
we had a
that-
fatal there.
Right.
That's why we tell them, and they don't always put those cones up.
Or they don't put them
far enough out. Because you can't get the line of sight.
Right, and it was rainy and, yeah.
It was a bad day yesterday. It was really, you had about 1,750 voters come here. They parked on the grass, they've done some damage there. I think it's gonna be easy enough to bring it back. But they really were they were trying to do their best. The citizens were trying to do their best. There was rain, and there were lines out in the rain, and there was so people were standing out in the rain to vote. So there were a lot of issues yesterday, including issues internally here, because there was problems with the machine. It's one of the things we're gonna address with another budget request for a second machine, so that if we have problems, at least we got a machine to back it up, and we can use both machines to run the crowd through faster. But that's a different issue. But there were problems in here managing the flow of traffic. The handicap access did come in that way, but they exited that way, which would have put them right in the handicap area. Now, we did talk about the possibility of bringing that ramp up a little bit closer. In fact, I think it was in June. I presented a drawing of something that I proposed where we knocked the curb down. We have the right slope on the sidewalk, and then we could use this door as handicap. But then the question came up: we'd have to put handicap door, which was at one time the intent.
Well, that's something I think we should do anyway.
So the issue here is in future elections, and I think Bill is making the point, as I understand Bill's comment, that perhaps when we know, like in a presidential election, you're going to get the 750, you might want to move it elsewhere for voting. But I think that's his point.
Exactly. It had more parking up there, we had better lighting, people can get in, out of the elements. I realize that it's not central, but I heard more complaints about not using that than using this and going through the problems that we ran into. I don't know what the answer is, but I know we were kind of crowded, and I expect the same thing will happen in 2 years. I may not be around to.
Go ahead. Mike's got it, and then you can.
Yeah, I think, Bill, you're absolutely right, but I think we should have move all of our elections up there. And the reason being, number one, you never know when you're gonna get a big crowd.
One or the other.
And move them all up there, that way they can schedule for it, everybody knows when there's gonna be an election coming up. We don't have to surprise them and say, hey, we're coming up here this election. Move them all up there, the fire department knows what's going on, all the other departments know what's going on, and people can get in and out of the rain, if it's raining. Last night it was terrible, they were getting sopping wet standing out there. And that's what I would propose, that we do that, and if you want a motion, I'd be glad to make it.
Let's see what Ernie's got.
Well, that was kind of my point, was that how do you have, one year have elections here, and the next year is a big election, have it there. It potentially causes some confusion, or where do we vote, are we voting here, are we voting there? And so I was gonna concur with that. I think things ran pretty smoothly by having them up there. And, I know there was one candidate that was, standing in the hall greeting people, which is their right to do. But there, and I've done that before when I was running for, this office, but there's no room to do that here, really. I mean, it was kind of crazy. And then, of course, the lines to vote and the lines to deposit their ballot in the machine were sort of commingling, to try to, it was really it was great that we were able to get through it, but we really have to address this. And so I think it's wise to just make a decision to maybe do that up there.
Agreed.
Or, I don't, if we want a more central location, we used to do it at the school. I guess we could consider that too, but
There's no parking down there.
no, there's no parking there either. So, the parking's better up there. So, and the lighting, and I think even the access for handicap is better there than it, we have access here, but it's probably better there, I'm
We
guessing.
either gotta do one or the other. Either we're gonna have them
Center
here,
for
or
All
we're gonna have them
Seasons
there.
It's a great spot.
All of them, no?
Yeah.
Well, I actually thought we had the booth set up out there, that it was gonna be the handicap access, folks could vote there and wouldn't then have to try to feed through and go out this back door. I thought that's what we were doing, so I was a little shocked when we weren't. Cause I was like, well, that made sense to me.
Well, I mean, the absentee.
Yeah.
So I think we ought to take Bill's concern about this and
I'm gonna make the motion, let's do it.
make it, I make the motion that we take Bill's concerns and we do what's right for the town and maybe move all voting to the Center for All Seasons in the future.
I think
Was that the motion I should make?
No, let me say about the problem with the motion. Why don't we just move that we have all elections down to Center for All Seasons. I mean, not gonna find, we're gonna search around, there are no.
No, I don't wanna search around,
I think you said that.
The motion was we make the change to the Center for All Seasons.
For all elections.
For all elections.
No, second.
Okay, moving to second. Any discussion on this?
How do we let the townspeople know?
The same way they didn't know where to vote this last time.
There were people that put out there, where do I go to vote?
That didn't have a
I need to
clue.
go vote, I don't know where I.
We would certainly use the LED sign, we'll use our website, we'll use the newsletter, because this will be an article for the newsletter, all of that, and Facebook prior to the elections, which he's.
You're not gonna worry, news is gonna travel fast when this gets out.
How about having the local newspaper just print a little thing about what we just discussed?
We can ask them whether they would accept it or not. We can write up something and we'll see if we can get it in.
A lot of people
If that's the
have
word.
lately.
Well, it felt like the people who were voting last night, that was their wish. Everyone was saying, why did we move it down here? This place is so much smaller.
No matter what you do, but anyway, whatever. All right, we beat that to death. Let's vote on it. All in favor? She's moved. I'm gonna have to drive this car home at night. Anyway.
Bill was agitated.
All right, let's move on to warrant.
Bill was agitated, though.
Anyway, he was so, hey, you don't like it, talk to your select board.
Are you bringing up the rules? You wanna do it now?
Well, no, I'm just.
Yeah, let's do it right now so that they can get out of here.
Let's,
It's starting to get on my nerves.
where's the one?
We're not gonna do the one, we're gonna, let's do the thing you got for these guys.
Okay, so the issue here is the Belgrade Rome study group looking at how we're going to manage interactions with the fire department and rescue. So there are 4 people that Dan brought forward to be part of that group. Rome's already chosen their 4, and the 4 that Dan is suggesting, and it's up to you to appoint them according to the agreement, would be Ricky Dameron, Travis Burton, Dan McKenzie, and Jay Bradshaw. So if you would agree with those 4, that action can be taken and we can move this thing forward. I will, with Richard Lavelle, will provide the administrative support and we'll get these meetings going.
I make the motion, we accept their proposal for committee members and.
Can you name them? What's in the motion?
Dan, Travis,
Ricky
Dameron.
Jay Bradshaw.
Jay Bradshaw.
Yeah, motion's been made. Is there a second? I'll second it. Huh?
No, I
You told me to take it over. Is there any further discussion? Okay, call for a motion, call for a vote. All those in favor?
Thanks, sir.
4.
I wouldn't want to.
4 in favor, 1 abstention. Good. All yours again.
All right, let's get back to the warrant. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for stopping by.
Thank you.
This is most, that is it. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Now, Lenny, do you want to take care of the warrant?
This isn't the warrant.
Good night, Mr. Bolster.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you, Bill. Bill will take care of it. Let's go to discuss it. We'll take care of it.
see it here. I didn't think that was
This was about who expecting a midterm election.
Well, that's the most we've ever had.
The midterm election, you don't expect that.
That was pretty exciting, maybe
That was very exciting.
continue.
Wicked.
Wicked
I
exciting.
went right to bed.
Wicked.
Thank you, gals.
I was supposed to go down to one of the parties, but I didn't go.
No.
All right, who's doing all?
Well, right now, we're getting the warrant shit up.
Why don't you wanna ask questions? Well, we can't, we get it, never mind.
Never mind.
Forget it. Forget I said that.
I thought it was a pass.
Isn't it the one with that in it?
Mm-hmm.
It's the one with that in it?
Yeah, but then you the phone to answer questions. You think they have all of these memorized, wouldn't they?
All right, warrant number 135 in the amount of $45,831.15.
Make a motion to accept that.
Good. Discussion.
Do you hear a second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Yeah, I have some questions.
Go ahead.
Page one, number 17989, nameplate. What do you get nameplates for?
These are nameplates for either the ones that aren't here, but normally are here, or the planning board or the appeals board. They're, when you're holding meetings, the nameplate.
Where are they?
Well, we have them, they just weren't put out.
If we paid for them, where are they?
We want to see them.
So these are, I think there's 4 of these, and there were 4 for people that were newly appointed to boards.
Okay, good. This one I know the answer to. B&S paving and construction, is that the dump? Excuse me, no, that's transfer station.
That would be the transfer station, and if I can just address that.
Please do.
Okay, last board meeting, you approved contracts that I misinformed you. I had asked Kenny whether or not that was in his budget. He said yes, and that's what I passed on. The fact of the matter was, he said yes, it meant that the money was in the budget, had been programmed for something else they had available, and but they were reprogrammed. So, Ernie, you were part of those discussions on the trans, that's basically what happened, because I thought the money had been programmed in the budget, that's what I told the board, and I was unfortunately wrong. So.
No, I have a question on the amount, because I wasn't aware that we were doing 200, I thought it was like 4,000 something.
I think there was.
It was up to 8,300 in the minutes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because there were 3 different areas, right?
Yeah.
Do you mind if we just look at that real quick? Sorry.
Yeah, no.
Whatever, I'll be the one that makes people go there.
No.
Get more information, I don't feel like we should just be like, sure, let's get out of here. Okay, paid and quoted then not to exceed 8600.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, thank you.
I was thinking of 86, but I wasn't sure. That's why I didn't say it.
Where'd you see that?
It's the last 2 lines in the synopsis.
Oh, right. I remember 8,000,
Okay.
but I couldn't remember.
Mike's
what
got some more?
Yeah.
So,
Number 17994, Bob the plumber, $55 to tighten a pep cup. Isn't that just the
sink.
You just came in and tightened it, and they charged us $50 for the call, right?
Yeah. Minimum 1 hour probably.
Yeah, all right.
I don't know what your contract says, I haven't read it, but it's a 2-year contract. I can read it, but I'm sure there's a minimum.
No, it must be, I'm sure it's legitimate. It just struck me that, couldn't they tighten the damn faucet themselves? All right. Next page, E.C. Berry and Sons, basin cleaning. Where's the basin, the $4,800 basin?
Where is this at?
Morris can probably tell you that.
There's one in front of the Sunset Grill. There's one on the Lake Shore Drive on the intersection.
Oh, they're on the West Road?
Two down Holland Road.
Okay.
And there's 2 down.
All on town roads. All on town roads.
Down on the town road.
Huh? No, I say all on town roads.
Right.
Yeah, okay, thank you. And the stone from Gagny and Sons, 17999, that's what, for the dam? It does say dam. That's just the
It
latest
does say
repair.
dam, doesn't it?
And that would be from the dam.
For the repair?
For the repair.
Okay. Thank you, I'm done. Does the Morton salt pour when it rains?
Excuse me?
Does Morton salt that we buy pour in the rain, when it rains?
When it rains, it pours.
When it rains, it pours, it's supposed to, little girl in the umbrella. I'm done.
Okay, anybody else got anything? Are we getting the salt now from,
Well, I was gonna raise that anyway.
okay. So we'll wait on that.
Let's vote.
Guess I'm all set too, everybody. You got anything on? No. Okay, seeing none, I entertain a vote, all in favor? Aye, thank you.
To be forewarned.
Your minutes, I think, isn't it?
Am I up here?
Yeah.
Okay, just to let you know that we have 3 active situations where we're undertaking enforcement. And as you know, there's the Steve Jones enforcement action. That's been complicated recently because the budding property owner has decided to ask for intervention on that. That's on Sandy Cove Road 326. So that issue is, we're trying to work that through so it doesn't slow down the work. There's the ongoing issue with the Right Side Marina, that's in Superior Court. I don't know when that's gonna take place. So then there's the issue of the Foster Day gravel pit. I think that we will resolve that. I just need to talk to Morris a little bit. We can write up something to resolve that. And that'll be fine there. We have 2 positions that we've requested, we've actually interviewed for the deputy clerk. We had 23 applications. We set up 7 interviews. 4 people either got jobs or declined because their situation at their current job was improved. 3 are remaining, and I think the decision is going to be forthcoming on who we select. Then we have the assistant for the facilities section, is the supervisor for the transfer station. We have 3 applications right now. It's open until the 9th, and then I expect to set up the interview committee. The last time, Ernie, you participated in that, Bruce, Kalush, myself. Did you want to participate in one of these, or anyone?
Whatever, if you need somebody on it, do it. Sorry. If you need somebody.
Yeah,
I can do it.
Either one of you 2.
Yeah.
I'll call you to see who's available.
If they're busy, just call me, I'll be around.
Okay.
Wow, I hope. No.
Okay. Veterans Day, I just want to make it, that's coming up.
We're giving that day off.
That's Monday?
That's Monday, and that day will be, the office will be closed. The cages will be worked on that day, and hopefully we'll have the cages installed within the next 2 or 3 days. So that's my understanding of the status of that. We did that. I'm still working with the county to define what the law enforcement dispatch fees will be and how it's going to be handled. I kind of talked to you about that issue. The dam has been repaired. It was repaired last week, I believe. Within 2 days, they had it fixed. I've got pictures of it. There were pictures that were sent out. And the one thing with the dam repair, at the dam meeting on Monday, the dam committee talked about their request, which remember I put to you, it was $40,000. They came in and talked about it. Well, that had not been voted on because the chair thought we needed the information that day, which we would like to have had that day. He took what they were talking about, put it forward. The dam committee said, no, that's not what we need. We need to go to $80,000, and that's the request they're going to make. They'll be here when you get to vote on that. So that's that. We have 2 petitions that have come in. Both petitions have a fault in them. It's a fault that you can rectify. You can either accept the petitions without the circulator's oath. It's supposed to be on there, the petition's oath on the circulator oath. And we can you can accept it without that, or we can call them in, which is MMA's recommendation, is to call them in, put the circulator's oath on the back and have them sign.
On the back of each page, and have them sign.
So that's a question that's up to you. You can accept them as is, that's just local control, that's your choice.
What are the two petitions? What are the two petitions?
One petition is the petition on the library. I have not, this is Ernie Rice's petition, I have not actually read that yet. And the other petition is the petition for funding of the sexual, is that the sex?
Spectrum, senior.
Oh, senior spectrum, I'm sorry.
I'll tell you what my feeling is, and Cheryl called me on it, and I said, if it's required on there for everybody else, it ought to be required on these two.
Yeah.
If it's just a simple thing and put the oath on, them signing it, it's pretty simple. But I think we ought to.
Up to you. Whatever we do here, we'll be doing for everyone.
That's right.
It should be.
That's the way it should be.
Okay. Well, I mean, you do have the option, I'll let you.
Yeah, no, and I know that, and I thought about that.
Was it a senior spectrum that was put in every year?
They were told.
That was
that was a question.
Karen and Cheryl has actually sent out letters to these people specifying what they're required to do and how they're required to do it, so. But nonetheless, people, how people do this.
So what is our option, just to reject the whole thing? Or
You can,
sign it?
no, you can ask for them to come in and sign it, or you can accept them as they are without the petitioners.
Or they could be rejected.
Or you could reject them, but
because they're improper.
that would be a bigger issue.
I think we need to put the oath on and have them come in and sign it.
Yeah.
Like the rest. Pretty simple, but.
Well, it's tempting.
Motion.
Huh?
So that's what you want us to do, that's what we're doing.
Well, it's up to the rest of the board, that was my suggestion.
Yeah, do you want a motion on it or something? Or?
I'd probably like to have one.
We'll make the motion that, we authorize the, town clerk to invite these people back in to sign the circulator's oath on the back page of each petition.
Second.
Been moved and seconded, any more discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Thank you, bye.
Okay, we're successful after a couple discussions and all that to get the price for Norton's Fall. So they're the ones that bid it at 52, 25 or 50, I can't remember, 52, 25. We did clear up the problem of them delivering the salt in time, and I believe David told me that he's gonna have it done this week. I didn't get the chance to check it, it'll be done, I think it was done last Friday.
We paid him.
So, yeah, it was done by last Friday. No, I mean, there's a lot more than just that we pay. He's been getting the deliveries, but he's finished it up last week. The other thing on that, the salt stand shed, he said that the fans are working fine.
Oh, good.
Okay?
Good. It only took us, what,
So it seems
20
like a
years.
cure.
I've stopped a couple times and checked on it, and then
Okay.
there was no smoking.
Check
So-
all kinds of weather. Is it gonna be one of those like, in a snowstorm?
And the final thing I'm gonna say is, I'm gonna be out of the office starting at 1 o'clock tomorrow. I'm gonna leave the office, I'm going on a short vacation. I'll be out tomorrow, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and be back in Wednesday. Hopefully I'll be on a meeting on Tuesday evening if I can. I'll be available by phone. So,
25.
and that's it.
Well, I screwed up. And I should have done this probably at the beginning of the meeting, that congratulations to you on winning the election. No, that's something, probably should have done. I didn't do it, but I wanna do it now. Well, I did too, but I wanna do it.
Thank you very much.
I get my wife made me.
And just to say, I think it was a good campaign. I think Carol has some honest issues that she worked hard to develop. So,
All right, we're down to other. Does anybody else got anything they wanna bring up before we leave? Seeing none, I would entertain a vote to adjourn.
So moved.
oh,
Look, hang on.
one quick thing. They're looking for people who are going to this governance meeting, so they get, so just let me know by email if you're going. I got a couple of responses already.
I'd like to go, it's usually a good fall.
Okay.
All right. Anything, motion, all in favor?
Thank you.
I called the state about that.
I think it was Ernie and.
Thank you, Jack.